Hello, everyone. As many of you guys are probably aware, there was recently a video on the Headphone Show about DCS, a manufacturer, threatening legal action against one of our reviewers, a coworker of mine, Cameron. And since then, there have been a number of reactions to that. And one of those reactions is from Darko Audio that he posted over on his Instagram. And it's prompted me to make this video because, in my mind, it's sort of a catalyst for a larger conversation that I feel we need to have about some of this stuff. Now, I'm making this video on this channel. I haven't made a video here in a while because this is just sort of an expression. I'm treating this as an expression of just my basic social media. And really, I feel the quality of this content or lack thereof will kind of also reflect that. So this is just going to be kind of my raw take on stuff. If I use this platform again, it will also be probably for similar things. And I really just don't have the time to be building two channels. So this is really just me rambling, but rambling on a topic that I think is important. And so let's just get right into it. So Darko Audio posts this on his Instagram. And he's got 3 different points here. It says, Hi-Fi Reviewing 101. Point number 1, manufacturers threatening reviewers with legal action does not happen all the time. Point number 2, the existence of negative reviews is not a prerequisite for the trustworthiness of positive reviews. And point number 3, Darko Audio contributors are not permitted to moonlight as manufacturer consultants or PR people. Now, I want to go through these points individually, but in general, I feel that this post kind of misses the mark on the whole point of the issue and just the issue in general. And so I want to kind of like raise this in the spirit of, again, a bigger picture. But let's go through these points here. So point number 1, manufacturers threatening reviewers with legal action does not happen all the time. And this is, of course, in relation to DCS threatening Cameron with legal action. And there were other examples of that. There was the Tecton example, and then there were some other ones that the community has been made aware of, at least, as a result of this whole situation. And so what he's trying to communicate here is that basically this is not common practice. And while this is technically true, like manufacturers are not out there just like constantly threatening legal action. There are all kinds of other unfortunate or difficult reactions that manufacturers have to critical content online, and that does happen all the time. So an example might be a manufacturer trying to denigrate the credibility or the trustworthiness of the review platform, trying to find reasons or excuses or biases in the reviewer to say this is why their opinion can't be trusted. They must have been paid by a competitor to say critical things. Or this reviewer, their ears are broken. That's literally something that a manufacturer has said about me in response to critical content that I've put out there about, a product. You don't actually have to look far to see where manufacturers are trying to influence the outcome or sentiment online about their products. This takes place in public conversations on HeadFi, social media, ASR, and you don't need to look far to find it. Now, across the board, this is not a bad thing necessarily, but my point here is that there are better and worse ways of handling criticism and feedback. And the good examples are when manufacturers take this as constructive feedback or take it as some way of trying to improve their products. Or even if they don't agree with the reviewer, they say, okay, that's your opinion, that's fine. And it can create this beacon of positivity around that dialogue. So that's kind of the main issue that's going on here. It's about how manufacturers react to criticism online of their products, and suggesting that, they're not out there threatening to sue people all the time as some sort of, a bulwark against, manufacturers' reprehensible behavior in many cases, that's kind of obfuscating the issue. It's a bit of a red herring because that's not really, the full extent of the issue. Now, with that said, though, there is actually an explanation for why manufacturers might react this way. I'm not saying it's good, I'm not condoning it, but for a lot of these manufacturers, especially the older ones, they're used to a way of media coverage that existed in the past that isn't really the way that modern reviewers are evaluating their products. It used to be that if there was coverage of a product, it was bound to be positive. It was expected to be positive. And so for a lot of these manufacturers, they've only ever encountered positive coverage and positive feedback. And so when there is one person, there's an outlier saying, oh no, this is maybe not so great because of X, Y, and Z reasons, they think immediately, well, there must be something wrong with the evaluation, or there must be an explanation for why, or reason why they said this, because everybody else is saying it's great. And so the modern way of judging products to be good or bad, and especially with some of the ways that we evaluate with, measurement tools and things like that, that's new for some of these brands, and they don't really know how to handle those situations. They don't really know how to handle that new landscape of editorial content. And the other explanation is that for many of these brands, they're quite small and they don't have the resources to withstand a particularly critical review of one of their products, where they depend on that product doing well in the market. And so for some of them, they take that criticism personally. They take it as not just criticism of the product, but almost as like an extension of themselves. They treat these products almost like their children. So I'm not saying again that it's okay, but this is sort of an explanation for why they behave this way sometimes. Now, the other thing I want to mention about this is that reviewers do have a responsibility to tell the truth, to uncover the truth about a product, and to tell it like it is. I mean, that's kind of the job. And what I mean by that is it's not good enough to just not be dishonest. You have to actively try and figure out what's going on with a product. And that doesn't always happen. I'm thinking of an example where a reviewer a while ago reviewed a headphone with aftermarket pads, and it had a horrible frequency response. And then the conclusion was, yeah, out of the box, this thing is terrible. And then a whole bunch of people walked away thinking, yeah, this product is terrible. Now, it might have been terrible, but you don't know that because you measured it with the wrong pads. And I think in this case, this person might have been new to reviewing and didn't realize the effect that pads can have on frequency response and how different it can be with the intended ones. But the thing is that once this has been pointed out, it's your job to correct this. You basically just have to do this again. Essentially, you need to be responsible with what you put out into the world. And once it's been shown that there are errors in the methodology or problems with the evaluation, you need to figure out the ways to correct that if you can. It is reasonable for people to be pointing out, hey, you did this wrong in the review, you did this wrong in the review, if in fact there are issues going on, right? Like that dialogue is not the problem. So, point number 2. The existence of negative reviews is not a prerequisite for the trustworthiness of positive reviews. Now, what I believe he's getting at with this point is to try and prop up the trustworthiness or the credibility of review platforms that don't contain negative or critical reviews. There are review platforms where they only produce positive reviews, and this is to say basically that, negative reviews are not a requirement for those positive reviews to be credible or to be useful or trustworthy. And to that, I'm just going to say no. This is one of the most unhelpful takes I've seen in a very long time. If the possibility of critical or negative sentiment towards a product is off the table, I have no reason to give a shit about what you say, because it's not a review at that point. Categorically, that is not a review. If there's no possibility that you could say, hey, I don't like this thing about this, even if it's the best product of all time and perfect, if there's no potential for you to say anything critical about that product, I don't care what you have to say. Now, there is a different reading of this that I also think is worth mentioning, which is to say that the existence of negative or critical reviews is not a sufficient condition for trustworthiness of positive content. And that's true. So it's not enough to, have negative reviews out there, even though it's compelling, because I think for a lot of people, they see that, oh, you're willing to say that this thing is crap, therefore I can trust what you have to say. But that does not, it's true that just because you're willing to say negative things about products, that doesn't make you a credible source of information, because there are examples of people saying, all these different products are crap, this is crap, that's crap, but this one brand and this one product is amazing. And that's not, again, that's not providing a fair and balanced assessment of anything, really. So that's true, but I don't think that's what Darko is saying here. And I'm not sure if you guys have come across this, but I keep coming across this, and it's this idea that if you're going to be putting out a review, it may as well be positive. Like I've had people come up to me and say, why would you ever review something negatively? Why would you bother putting time and effort into doing that? And to me, the idea that all the content that you put out or all the reviews that you do should be positive, that is nonsense. That is so unhelpful. Omitting the negatives is a severe disservice to anybody who is potentially researching those products or considering buying them. And their money is at stake. The goodness and badness of their experience is at stake. And you've just conveniently decided to omit key information that is highly relevant to that. Okay, moving on to point number 3 here. Darko audio contributors are not permitted to moonlight as manufacturer consultants or PR people. This is, I believe, in reference to collabs. So like, for example, when Critical does a collab, or I believe it's not a stretch to consider this in reaction to the collab between Golden Sound and Ferrum. So they have collabs in the market. And for people who don't realize this, there are many different forms of collabs. In some cases, there is a genuine collaborative effort, and in other cases, manufacturers already have a product in mind, and they are just looking for, you know, somebody to slap their name on it to help them sell more stuff. And so there's a range, there's a whole spectrum there of how these collabs take place. And there is a larger discussion to be had on collabs and some of the implications of that for reviewers. But this point is effectively trying to leverage not doing collabs as a statement of credibility for their content. That's how I read this. And I'm trying to sort of steel man some of these points, but to me, that's how this comes across. It comes across as basically saying, we don't do any of these collab things, therefore you can trust what we have to say. This reminds me actually of a practice that I see regularly in YouTube reviews, just in different industries, where people will say things like, the manufacturer has not seen this video before you do. That is a rubber stamp and means absolutely nothing. It has no bearing on whether or not you've taken money from the manufacturer. It has no bearing on whether or not you are leveraging affiliate links. It has no bearing on whether or not you have any other incentives to say positive things about those products that you're reviewing. So not having a collab in the market is not an indicator of trustworthiness at all. It's just an indicator that, hey, that's not one of the biases that someone is having to deal with. That's not one of the incentive structures that they are operating under. There could be all kinds of other incentive structures. And speaking personally, I don't have a collab in the market, but the absence of that does not preclude me from doing all kinds of nefarious things that would make me untrustworthy. So again, this post is an exercise in rubber stamping credibility and raising that up the flagpole for all to see. And in doing so, obfuscates the real issues that are going on here to do with manufacturer reactions to critical sentiment and critical content online, and the way that reviewers go about evaluating products. And just on that note, if somebody is trying to genuinely figure out how something, or try to predict how something is going to sound to them, there are ways that you can do this. I mean, the answer is clear. I know not everybody likes measurements, but this is the kind of thing that grounds critical and positive takes. And I know I'm biased in that sense because we do measurements, and that is a core element of our evaluative content. But if you're able to say, for example, hey, this headphone has a massive peak in this particular region that you might find objectionable, that is tangible and grounded information that you can demonstrate. Like if you are anti-measurement and you're just going to ignore all the data on these products, you live in the land of trust me, bro. That's not good enough. We can do better as a community. We do better as a community than just, hey, you know, what I say is the truth and this is how this product sounds and that's how it's going to sound to you. And so that's basically what I would leave you with on this topic, at least for now. I think that there is a larger discussion to be had, but this post from Darko, I don't know him personally, I don't know how he operates, and I have no idea what the incentive structure is there. But this post in general, I feel, misses the mark for what the important issues are, especially when it comes to some of the negative behavior that does exist in this industry, unfortunately. I would just like to say that I hope that this whole situation with DCS has become like a lightning rod for other manufacturers to realize, like, it is so much worse if you try and engage that way. Like, that issue is now over. That has all been resolved, no pun intended. But I'd like to think that other people seeing what's happened, I like to think that it will cause them to think twice about engaging in this way with critical content. Anyways, that is all I have to say about this. Leave your thoughts in the comments as usual. And again, if you're interested in any of the work that I do, that is over on the Headphone Show. That is not here. But yeah, I will see you guys in the next video. Bye for now.